The kick is critical in butterfly, and it serves multiple roles in creating speed, some of which you may have not considered before. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. In this video, we're going to learn all about the kick in butterfly, what it is, what it does, and what swimmers need to do in order to have a great one. More than anything else, the butterfly kick creates propulsion. While that has the obvious benefit of sending swimmers down the pool, the butterfly kick also creates propulsion that serves to lift the hips after the kick. But it's no less important than moving swimmers down the pool because indirectly, it makes it a lot easier for swimmers to move down the pool. So let's dive in and explore the butterfly kick. To have an effective butterfly kick, swimmers are going to need to orient the feet backwards to create as much propulsion as possible. So if we watch here, we're going to see the swimmer set up the kick, and right there you can see his feet are starting to point backwards, and they're going to stay backwards until right there where they flick through. So as much as possible, you can see that they're bent backwards. That's going to create as much propulsion as possible, and they're going to get the most out of each kick. So in order to do that, they're going to need to bend the knees to get the foot facing backwards. They're also going to need to flex the ankle in order to get the foot facing backwards as much as possible. So by bending the knee, by bending the ankle back, they're going to create a position where water can be moved backwards as much as possible, and that's going to move swimmers forwards. However, if we watch the actual kick, the foot's not going to be facing perfectly backwards. It's going to be facing backwards and down. And the kick itself is going to be down. So while the kick is going to move the hips forward, it's also going to move them up. So right there, you can see the hips lift in the water as a result of the kick. And when we see here, the kick, the hips are going to go up right there as a result of the kick. So whenever swimmers kick, they're creating propulsion, and that's sending them forward and up with the hips. So when swimmers create propulsion with the legs, they're moving the body forwards and up as they move through the water. In terms of moving a swimmer forward, the kick happens at two key points. One, right here, where the swimmers aren't creating any propulsion with the upper body, and so it helps swimmers get a little bit of speed, help them maintain a little bit of speed prior to setting up the stroke and executing the pull. So a strong kick can allow a little bit more continuity of speed by creating more propulsion when no propulsion is being created by the arms. And the kick also happens at a second key point right before the arm recovery. And obviously during the arm recovery, there's going to be no upper body propulsion. So swimmers need to be moving as fast as possible so they can maintain as much speed as possible when they're not creating any propulsion. So right here, they've got the pulse from the upper body, and then they're adding the kick to it to help them get even more speed as they head into the arm recovery. So from a forward propulsive standpoint, the kick plays a really important role in minimizing the impact of the arm recovery because it allows swimmers to create more speed heading into the arm recovery, and it allows them to create a little bit of speed after the arm recovery. Now, I've already mentioned how propulsion is directed forwards and upwards. We've discussed the positive impact of the forward propulsion. Let's take a look at the impact of upward propulsion on the stroke. So as the arms are preparing to enter, you can see that the body is at an angle, and that's because the arms have been recovered over the water and the chest has been lifted in the water to breathe, and that's going to push the hips down. So the body's going to be at an angle. Of course, that's going to create a lot of resistance as swimmers move through the water, so it's a position that swimmers have to get out of. And so as they enter the arms, there's going to be a little bit of a press of the chest, which is going to help establish alignment in the water again. But also, watch that kick there. There the kick comes through, and that's going to pop the hips up. And so the propulsive action of the kick is also really important for reestablishing body alignment after the pull, where swimmers are necessarily going to lose alignment. So the kick serves another really important propulsive function, not because it's moving the swimmer forward through the water, but it's moving the hips up in the water, which is going to create a better alignment, which is going to allow for more speed. It's like taking off the brakes, and the kick serves a really important function for helping swimmers get back into alignment. So watch it again here. The body's inclined. There's a little bit of press of the chest, but boom, the kick happens, and that's going to pop the hips back up to the surface. And you can see the swimmer's in much better alignment here than they were right there. And that's not a flaw with this swimmer's skills. That's going to happen with everyone. The key is to minimize the impact and the duration of those poor body positions, and that kick can help swimmers get back into alignment faster and more effectively. When it comes to the other kick, we have the same basic dynamics. The swimmer is beginning to lift the head, lift the chest, and that's going to send the hips down. The problem is the swimmer has to recover the arms over the surface, and if the hips are low, the hands are going to be low, and it's going to be really difficult to get them out of the water. So if we watch here, we're going to see the swimmer kick, and their hips are going to rise up in the water. So you can see those few frames here Some of it's the pull, but it's also the kick. So the hips are low and the kick's starting to go now, and up go the hips. They're back up at the surface, and then the swimmer can recover the arms effectively and smoothly. Without that kick, it's going to be a lot more difficult to keep the hips up at the surface. When the head and chest are lifted, that's necessarily going to push them down, and then that kick can counteract that and get the hips up at the surface, which makes it a lot easier to recover the arms, a lot easier to swim effective butterfly. So creating propulsion with the lower body is critically important because it moves swimmers down the pool and it allows them to more effectively perform the arm recovery and then get back into alignment after the arm recovery. So the kick is a lot more than just an added speed bonus. It's an integral part of how the stroke works, and without it, or without an effective kick, it's going to be a lot harder to swim effective butterfly. One aspect of the kick that I want to draw attention to is the leg recovery. So a lot of swimmers tend to think that it's just a knee action, when in reality, it's a knee and hip action through the kick itself, but the leg recovery is going to happen almost exclusively from the hips. So if we watch here, the legs are going to be recovered straight up, and the only reason they bend is because the foot's still moving up when the knee comes back down to set up the kick. So the leg recovery here is straight, and then as he starts to kick here, that's what's bending the knee, is pulling the knee forward while the foot is still rising, rather than lifting the foot up to the butt. And that's going to create the position to have an effective kick. So if we watch it again here, a straight leg recovery and then a reversal of the knee, the swimmer's not recovering the foot from the knee, it's happening from the hip. And then only when the kick happens itself, that's when there's a reversal, and that's when the knee bends. Swimmers have to learn how to move from the hip and the knee when they kick, and then move just from the hip when they recover. If they're just going to bend the knee and move the foot back and forth, it's going to be a lot less effective, and they're going to get a lot less propulsion. So let's take a look at these same skills with another swimmer, just to demonstrate that it's not that one swimmer. So again, you can see those feet are pointed backwards, and then only at the end do they flick down towards the bottom of the pool. So they're facing backwards as much as possible. One, because she's bending the knees, and two, she's got the feet bent backwards as well. And then that flick is what finishes the kick. And if we watch here, you can see the legs recover straight there. And it's only when she pulls the knee back forward is when they bend. So she's already starting her downward kick, and that's what causes the knees to bend, not the recovery itself. The recovery is straight, and then the knees come forward to kick, which is what actually bends the knee, not the recovery itself. So one more time. The legs are straight, and then she starts to kick, and that's what bends the knee. Now, in terms of propulsion, you can see that kick right there as the arms recover, and that's going to allow her to maintain speed a little bit more when she doesn't have any propulsion from the upper body. And then after the pull, there's the kick there, which again accelerates her so she can make it through the arm recovery. So that's how the kick is creating forward motion, forward propulsion, and it happens at the times when it's most necessary and most effective. Now, in terms of the vertical aspect of the kick, we're going to watch right here. The kick gets those hips up to the surface so she can recover the arms. And then upon entry, you can see that the kick there, right there, pops those hips up to the surface. So now that she's in really good alignment and ready to start the next stroke. And then boom, kick there. You can see that lifts the hips up to the surface, and that's going to allow her to recover the arms a lot more effectively. So the kick isn't just this added thing that helps swimmers move through the water a little bit faster. It happens at key moments to create propulsion when there's no propulsion in the front of the stroke, and to create an even bigger burst of propulsion prior to the arm recoveries at the end of the stroke. And in terms of the vertical position, it helps get the hips up after the arm entry, and it helps get the hips up prior to the arm recovery. In both cases, the stroke's going to be much more difficult to execute if those actions aren't happening. And so that's why the kick is so important, because it not only adds a little bit more forward propulsion, but it happens at the right times and in the right ways to help hold the stroke together and get through the challenging aspects of the stroke. And in terms of creating a lot of propulsion, it's about orienting the feet backwards as much as possible, and then kicking backwards and down as much as possible, and then recovering the legs straight so that the swimmer can whip those feet back down to create a lot of propulsion. And that's ultimately the value of the straight leg recovery right here, is that it allows for a whipping action that starts at the hips, goes through the knees, and then snaps down through the ankles to create even more propulsion, both forward and up. So I hope that was helpful, and as always, keep it simple.